Welcome to the Passive House podcast, brought to you by Passive House Accelerator, a catalyst for zero carbon building. For news, inspiration, and connections from all flavours of Passive House, check out passivehouseaccelerator.com. Sign up to receive regular updates about events, get your questions answered, and contribute to the community dialogue. There's loads of free information for experienced professionals and people just starting out on their Passive House journey. We hope to see you at one of our weekly Passive House Accelerator live webinars. In the meantime, here's this week's Passive House podcast. Welcome back to the Passive House podcast. I'm Matthew Cutler-Welsh, coming to you from Auckland in New Zealand, and I'm joined this week by Ilka Cassidy. How are you, Ilka?
I'm doing well.
Now, you're currently in Philadelphia, but when this goes to air, I'm not sure where you'll be. You might be back in Germany or somewhere else around the country.
Yeah, I'll probably be in Germany. I'm going back to visit my family, but I'm doing a little trip to actually visit the Passive House district in Heidelberg for a couple of days. And then at the end of the trip, I'll actually be in Amsterdam for a few nights. So
that's not your first time to that Passive House region, Heidelberg, is it? You've been there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've been there. Yeah, when was that? Like a year ago before the International Passive House Conference, and we actually did a little video introducing the whole district, and yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. It is. All right. Well, we've got a special components spotlight episode, and this is with Source 2050, which is kind of a whole bunch of components, really. But I thought this was really useful because you start out by asking the whole team's description of what 2050 is, and it was fascinating to hear how different it is, because it is quite a comprehensive service, which we'll put a link to. You can find it fairly easily. Source 2050. It is one of the sponsors of the accelerator. We're very grateful to them, but of course, a lot of the people, are involved in across the board, including Michael Ingui, which I like to do a special shout out as well, because he's not only the sort of founder of Source 2050, but also the creator of the accelerator. And I think it's kind of interesting that both of those things and a lot of what Michael has created to solve a problem that he had and have grown to be a solution that many other people benefit from. So that's a sort of an introduction into what Source 2050 is. So let's jump straight into it, and we'll jump back after your chat with John, Shannon, and Michael Ingui.
Welcome to the Passive House Accelerator podcast, and this is a special component episode with Source 2050. And I'm here with Michael Ingui, John Knapp, and Shannon Pendleton, and I am very excited to talk about Source 2050. So let's start with a round of 10-second responses to what is Source 2050.
Source 2050 is a marketplace that removes the barrier that people would have to buy better building materials for their buildings. Right now, it's just too difficult to find things and to buy things for your passive house or low embodied carbon buildings. And Source 2050 solves that problem.
So our mission is to provide high-performance product solutions that are simple, automated, and free, and capture pricing, performance, and lead time in early design. So we try to help every firm become a design-build firm and solve the problems on the design side for specifications and on the build side for pricing by giving services, relationships, and cost.
The Source 2050 is a marketplace for high-performance building materials. It addresses the problems that people have when they are designing and when they're building. You need to know what's available for your specific project that's going to meet your spec, and you need to make sure that it's actually available to purchase and to get there on time. So we connect the design and the build part of a project for those that are trying to achieve the highest efficiency construction standards today.
Great. So I can't wait to hear more about Source 2050. But first, I would like to take a look at the people behind the scenes. Who is Source? Who are you? And yeah, can you just introduce yourselves and tell us about your background and what your role is at Source 2050? How about Michael?
Although I'm a co-founder at Source 2050, I don't have a massive role. It's more John and Shannon and team. I was really excited when I started to talk about Source 2050 and having a marketplace with John. My role in the company is limited because I run a 25-person architecture firm in Manhattan. And I really, really wanted this marketplace to exist. And John and Shannon and the rest of the team, you guys have the ability to really make these kind of what seemingly difficult but magical connections happen. And from having the right vendors on to everything. But in terms of my background, I'm an architect in New York City. We do a lot of work in the Tri-State area. We do a lot of passive house work. And especially when I got it started with this, it was just difficult to find stuff. Now there are definitely some companies who sell products. We all know who they are, but there's still not one place where you can find everything. One, two, there's just a lot of products out there that still are not readily accessible. And that's that bridging of that gap is what Source can do. And I really felt it was necessary. If we want to accelerate the building of better buildings, the only way you can do that, or one of the only ways to do that, is to just allow people to find materials faster and better. On my projects, the deadline will always win. And so if they can't find things quickly and easily, they're going to have no choice but substitute. So that's where Source really comes in and really bridges that gap.
So John, you're not an architect, right? You're actually not coming from the building sector. What is your background and what is your role at Source 2050?
Sure. Yeah, I'm a co-founder with Michael. My background, I was an intellectual property attorney for about a decade at large firms, and then was working in-house with tech startups, one of whom had some interest in European prefab designs that they were looking to bring over to the US. And I started to look into what was protectable. It was originally kind of an intellectual property exercise. Turns out not too much. It's a box. It's protectable. But that research developed into what is the current state of prefab and modular and building science generally in the US, kind of where is innovation happening. And all of that was happening coincidentally while my wife and I decided to do a gut renovation of our townhouse in Brooklyn, which was kind of falling down around us after 5 years, trying to do Band-Aid repair jobs to hold it up. And when we started looking at the renovation, we were already thinking about how we could rebuild it as efficiently as possible and started looking at passive. And that's how we met Michael. So I suddenly had kind of both at home and at work a fire hose of building science information coming at me. And I saw the real promise of passive house specifically, but just generally innovation in the built environment and what we could really be doing. And this is, by the way, 10 years ago. This is 2014, 2015. The project started. So really saw where this could be going, but also saw the roadblocks that were going to come up and would prevent it from growing as quickly as it could. And skills and sourcing seemed to be the real problems. You had project teams that are just learned to build a certain way, and it would be very hard to teach them these methods. And then once they were taught, you have to get the right products in front of them, and you were not going to be able to hit passive house standards with insulation that's available at Home Depot and so forth. So we realized that there was those kind of two blockers in the industry, and was happy to work with Michael on kind of the early days of what grew into the Passive House Accelerator, which was squarely targeted at the skills issue. And I think you guys have done an incredible job. I'm an advisor, but the team that's put together with Zach and everyone else that's been involved has been amazing. But we were still thinking about what do we do for sourcing, and we would see that happen a lot on the accelerator when there was a project presentation. People would start asking, in the second slide or the third slide, you were talking about this product you used on the roof there. What was that product? What's the name of it? Do you have a number for distributor? Is it available, in my area? which led us to believe there really needed to be a solution that could bring all these products together in one place, and not just theoretically, but actually available for sale to be able to purchase. And what we saw at the same time was this massive innovation happening and new products coming online, domestic startups launching new products, incumbents launching high performance product lines, and European companies wanting to come over to the market. And there was just no way to synthesize and compare all these products and make them available for project teams. So that was the inspiration for Source. Having a background as a lawyer wound up coming in handy, because what really makes the product, what makes the website work in the background are all the agreements we have with our various vendors to make sure the products are available and can get to your project team in time. So that's my background, and that's how we got to Source.
John, what does it mean to be a multi-vendor marketplace? And how does it work? If I'm a client wanting to place an order, looking for material, like I go on the Source 2050 website, and then what do I do from there? And how does the backend work?
Sure, it's great questions. So multi-vendor means that we have a number of products on our site that are competitors, that are within the same category, that are available through different distributors, some from the manufacturers directly, some through different distributors, some through one distributor across the country. This is all the kind of thorny rat's nest of agreements that sit behind the website that I put together. But it makes all the products that are there available to any customer through one interface. So you think of it kind of like an Amazon, where you're buying maybe 4 or 5 different products that could be coming through completely different channels, but they all arrive together. That was the aim. We thought early on that there was some retail presence. There were stores where they had one product line per category, and there's some benefit to that. But with so much innovation happening, we thought it made more sense to have this sort of open market where you can go into insulation or membranes, or HVAC systems or these sorts of things, and you can go within a category and see what's available and how do they compare with each other, and then make a decision based on the actual performance data rather than just it being the one solution that's available. So that's what I mean by multi-vendor, is that you go into a category and you're going to see competitors stacked up side by side. And our hope is that allows the product with the best building science that best matches what you're trying to achieve, that they will get that sale. It's not driven by their marketing spend, or their advertising. It's driven by what their actual to introduce transparency into the transaction is what we're trying to do. I'll let you make the decision based on your criteria and what the products can do, and nothing else.
So this is basically the front. It's the website, right? And you place orders. You have access to all the data sheets and all the product information through the website. But then behind it, there's actually a bunch of people who can answer questions and also compare products for you. So I think that's a huge benefit of working with Source 2050, is that you actually have people behind it that work with you and ask you about what goals you want to achieve, and see what is the best product which is available right now, and also compare cost and give you the options. So, and I think that's also where Shannon comes into play, because Shannon has been a Passive House consultant for many years, and she is also the in-house Passive House consultant with Source 2050. So Shannon, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then also what you do for Source 2050 and how you help project teams make the right decisions.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ilka. And I think a lot of this will sound familiar to you, because both of us seem to have a similar mission in our work and similar backgrounds. So my experience is on the architectural side. I've run a firm as a project manager, sole proprietor, high performance passive house consultant for 25 years. So I have a very deep understanding of how hard it can be to find and compare products to meet very specific high performance goals, along with pricing, along with lead times and availability. And then once I find them, by the time it gets put into the design and is ready to be priced, so that we can understand that we've met our mark because the builder has said, yes, it meets the budget, then there's time that lapses again when they actually go to purchase it. So I really understand the difficulty in the process from both sides. And I used to call the builders on my projects and say, who is your supply house? Who's the person at the desk you like to talk to? So I was already trying to be almost a personal shopper for them to find them the products I knew we were going to need to meet high levels of performance, like Passive House or any certification that has a pass fail or a high mark of measurement. So I came to Source 2050 because I wanted to have a much larger impact and to help other people get there faster. So when I first saw the platform in action and saw we have over 40 vendors, we have hundreds of products, and we have these great facile tools on the website that allow you to compare across brands by the building science metrics that matter. And then you can bulk download all of the product documents from installation instructions to material safety data sheets. And that is a powerful tool that architects don't typically have. I know a lot of architects go down what we call rabbit holes or wormholes, just trying to find the right thing for the right application. So it's been quite wonderful diving in and helping people see what we have to offer on the website, show them how to navigate the website and use the tools to compare, and then also to help them kind of level up their knowledge base because, we've got Passive House experts on staff. I like to call myself one of those experts, and I love to share where I get my knowledge from with people when they're comparing products. So we have lots of onboarding questions we ask to make sure that we understand the client goals. Once we understand the client goals, then we can offer multiple ways to meet them, share those in a very organized, metric-driven, performance-based delivery spreadsheet, a compare matrix, we call it. One sheet with all of the data and all of the products you're comparing, and then they choose. And that's how we really start that rapport with any of our clients. And we've got over 100 projects in our pipeline that are really active and close to 200 historically now. So we have been serving a lot of projects, and it's very rewarding to help people have a single point of contact and kind of walk them through until they start doing it themselves, because that's really the point, is to help people level up and give them the tools so they can take off from there.
So it's really, really nice to kind of share information and knowledge. I would like to talk a little bit more about the products that are on the Source 2050 website, because there are a lot, right? So what are your favorites? What would you like to talk about, John?
I'm the one with the least building knowledge on the team, so they're going to have, I think, some really intricate conversations about products. But from my perspective, what's been most interesting is we've gotten to a place now where innovative products are now finding us. Right? They see Source as a marketplace, as a way to get into the market, and so we're starting to get kind of startups and other businesses looking to launch in the U.S. for the first time reaching out to us. And one of the most interesting ones that come in that way, it was early days still, is the Coltraco ultrasonic leak detector system out of the UK, which is really, really an amazing product. It essentially uses ultrasonics to detect leaks really down to the microns in any surface. And it doesn't replace a blower door quite yet, but that is their goal. It is able to not only detect but measure any airflow through any penetration in the exterior of a building without having to pressurize, without having to shut it down, without having to kick people off of the job site, without disruption. And it allows you to do it repeatedly throughout the course of the project. When your subs are done, before the electricians leave, to make sure that they really close their sealed up their penetrations, after the windows are installed, after the membranes have been terminated, so on and so forth. It's really as easy as putting the generator, which is a little speaker on the outside, and standing inside with a microphone and listening for any sound that can get through. It's really that simple. And then there are ways to then calibrate and actually take measurements. So you can actually get your CFM readings, and you can build that into an ACH using the rest of the criteria for the building, square footage, air volume, and so forth. They're working hard in the UK on a bunch of pilot projects that will actually prove out that it can actually anticipate what the blower door results are going to be, which allows you to prepare for that testing more accurately. But it's an incredibly exciting product, and it's one of my favorites, just because it's so innovative and really addresses a real pain point, which is going into these tests sort of blind and then scrambling to figure out what went wrong if you fail. This takes all the guesswork out, allows you to be proactive in finding leaks. So that would be the one that I'm most excited about.
Plus, it looks pretty cool when you use it because you're wearing these big headphones and you have this wand in your hand and you're just tracing windows or doors. And I got to see it the first time, I think a couple of weeks ago at the Build Show. And it was pretty awesome. I really liked it. And it seemed to be a big hit amongst builders that checked it out.
It's big. It's a big hit at trade shows generally because people have looked at enough window cross sections and so forth. They're always looking for something new, and they suddenly see this wand come out. It's pretty exciting. The hit.
Yeah. And is it true that they developed it to test submarines before they go into the water?
Yes, it actually comes out of the British Navy. Actually holds the patents. It was originally developed as a way to test for hull water tightness on ships, and it was being used. It is used as SOP throughout the British Navy to this day. During COVID, the NHS, the hospital system in the UK, was establishing quarantine wards at the hospitals, and they were looking for a way to ensure that they were airtight. And they realized that they could adapt the ultrasonic technology that was looking for water tightness into air tightness. It was accurate enough to do that successfully, and so it was deployed for that during COVID. And then luckily, someone on the team with some building science background realized what they had done is that this could be applied to for buildings generally, in anticipating what the blower door process would be detecting. And so they were able to kind of re-commercialize it and calibrate it towards the built environment. And yeah, it's a great team, a lot of innovation, new products I think are going to be coming up soon. There's a lot of buzz what they're working on. That's going to be an exciting 2025 for sure.
So Michael, what's your favorite product?
I will say the Hull Charcoal's gun is a pretty cool product. For us, schedule is king. So as I've mentioned before, and we sometimes need to close up where we haven't done the blower door yet, and not sometimes, every time, and that really helps you ensure that you don't have a leak where you're about to close up. So it's just huge. So I don't think it's the cheapest piece of equipment in the universe, but when you think about 1 week of schedule saving, and you just paid for it, so it's really cool. But I have to say, but my answer is maybe not so surprising for anybody who knows me, but it's every newest product. So what I get excited about, and I guess one of my roles in Source, is when we find something new, some cool solution, something that just unlocks the ability for people to do these high performance buildings faster or cheaper or better or with less embodied carbon. It's just bringing that material on board. And I will say what's cool about it is because we have so many other products on the site, very often it actually helps with other products that are already on the site because we can do systems-based solutions. Because sometimes that product by itself is interesting, but what you used to have to ask yourself is, okay, I can buy that thing here, but then I've got to find something else there. And does it work with this, which works with that? And then once you do, like it's doing all that. And again, it's just a lot of work for a lot of people. And it's going to be too easy just to pass it over because who's got time? So I get really excited about finding cool new things. And I love the other pieces of it. And then the other thing, sorry, I'm talking more about process than I am product. Just thinking about my office and how we've kind of selfishly have used Source. I still feel selfish when I use it. Is it just takes so many hours to compare window prices, and being able to send that directly to Source and having Shannon take a look at it and tell us, listen, I'm sorry, I know you wanted those 3 companies, but one of them can't make the thing you wanted. And then because they vetted it, and then being able to really compare the levels and provide that information, it's such a time saver. It just is. And with architects, we're just strapped for time all the time. So I feel like that's another huge piece. So for me, it's the new product that's on it. It's the systems that we're able to create, and just the ease of being able to use it.
Awesome. Thank you. How about you, Shannon?
So how do I choose a favorite product on Source? I think it's hard to choose a favorite because we first have excellent vendors that stand behind their products. And then we have the products that are hard to find, or in some cases can only be found on Source 2050 in the States. And the folks working here, like myself, we're designers and we're problem solvers. And we know how products go together into assemblies that, when connected, become a much greater sum as a whole than they are as their parts. So when we look at things like Glavel, which is a foamed glass gravel that can substitute 2 other items in an assembly and therefore save time on installation and yield the same performance with the addition of insulation under the slab, or Hempitecture, or the gradient units or the Epoca units, which are all-in-one mechanical units. These things save time, they save steps, they save specification, and they increase performance. So, for instance, these all-in-one mechanical units, if you haven't heard of them, they provide heating, cooling, and ventilation in one appliance, and in some cases offer dehumidification as well. So these things are very popular in Europe. There are multiple vendors in Europe for these, but there are very few in the States, and we have a number of them here at Source. So I love those as a solution, and I love putting together these products into solution packages like Michael was talking about. So when we look across brands and across products, we come up with great ideas, and we like to partner with people doing research or trying to fulfill grants to create new solutions. And some of the things we've done, for instance, is put an over-the-windowsill PTAC unit, which is a package terminal heat pump, or heating, cooling, ventilation all in one, over the windowsill, like your typical air conditioner, except in the form of a saddle. We put that in a window along with an interior storm window, which can take a single pane of glass to passive house levels of performance. And when we paired these 2 things together, we found that we could improve the weakest part of the envelope, which is the window, and the systems. We could replace both of those inside of an hour without moving out tenants, and the impacts of that are huge. So I think solutions like that help me realize that we really are having a greater impact, and that with the new products coming out that we onboard all the time, we're only going to increase our ability to offer solutions. So it's very fun to jump into a product team and have a new favorite product just because I see how it's going to be applied to meet someone's goal.
Awesome. So I think for me, I'm kind of biased towards insulation products because it makes a huge difference in like an overall building carbon accounting once you look at all these different products. And insulation is a big part of the building envelope, of course. So I think what I like about Source is being able to look at all these different foam-free options at once, because you kind of hear about these foam-free options, whether it's it's wood fiber or if it's sheep's wool or hemp. But it's very rare that you actually see them all at once and you can kind of compare them at once. And yeah, really just kind of gain knowledge that is a little easier to come by than, checking out all these different websites. Let's talk about, you mentioned before just sharing knowledge. Does Source 2050, how do they look at education of their clients? Is that something that Source is intending to do, or how do you look at that?
What's great about a lot of our vendors is they already have a lot of great educational material. A lot of them are the firsts in what they're doing. They're way ahead of the curve. So they have a lot of educational material that we definitely plan to have on the site, and in some cases do. What we also have, though, because a lot of us are associated with the Passive House Accelerator as well, and I'm the founder of the Passive House Accelerator, is we have a really strong connection to everything they do there. And there's a lot of educational content that lives on that, a lot of projects that live on that, and a lot of solutions that are presented on that. So for me, it's like a 1-2 punch. It's like combining or aggregating all these great solutions on the Passive House Accelerator. And for those of you who haven't been on it, you should go. And then on Source, it's aggregating all of the products in one spot so people can get them. It's fixing the two things. So there's lots of ways of getting education, but I feel like right now that's the one of the ways we are able to do it.
Awesome.
And I can speak to that a little bit too. When I'm working with a project team and figuring out what their goals are, what their assembly makeup is, what their vapor profile is, often what I start to see is that they want to hear from more than the manufacturer. They want to hear either what the certifying body is going to say about this product in this place in their building, or what another builder may have said about it, or if they've used it, what they used it with. And it's very, I feel lucky to have been with Passive House Accelerator for so long, because I can immediately pull up a video where this product has probably been used and show exactly the timestamp on that video where they show the installation or photographs of it or a sequencing diagram or an adhesion test, right? Or a team building exercise. So that part is wonderful to have the accelerator as a resource. But then also looking at the certifying bodies that our clients may be trying to satisfy, going right into their guidebooks, right into some of their preferred or pre-certified products and saying, look, here it is. It's on the list. So you know it's been used in a project like this before. And often we can make introductions to people on those project teams or people who have done those videos for the accelerator so that they can get a first-hand testimonial about what it was like to have that experience using that product.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times on the accelerator that there are notes in chat. What was that? Where do you get that? How do you get that? Where do I get that? And before Source, people are like, well, I don't know. And now it's really cool and it's kind of fun for me because I'm associated with both. At the same time we're getting emails. Hey guys, how do you onboard that? How can you get that on? Because a lot of times, Passive House is not new in Europe. It's nowhere near new. And there's a lot of really cool solutions that we just don't have here yet that make things a lot better, a lot cheaper, and a lot faster. So every time we find out about one of these things, it's just kind of cool. So I'm right there with you, Shannon.
Awesome. Let's look into the future a little bit. You're talking about looking at new products. And one of the goals already is while we're speaking, there are vendors being onboarded basically onto Source 2050 from conferences where we met other vendors and product distributors and manufacturers. So I think that's a really nice thing to know that as we go, there's always new things that are going to come up on the website. So it's always worth checking out the website over and over again. But besides that, what are the future goals? What is the goal looking into the closer future versus into the far away future?
I mean, I would say that there's small things and big things. Small things are certainly, we've been growing and adding products so quickly. There's definitely improvements that we need to make to the site itself that we are working on now. We know that we've been metaphor in startups that you're building the plane while you're flying it. That's kind of true for some of what we've experienced. So there's certainly some work that we're working on now that will improve the overall experience of using the site, add some features that people have been asking about for quite a while, which I think will be great. So those are kind of the smaller incremental things in the near term that we're working on that we're really excited about. Together, I think will really improve the overall experience of using the site. And then for long term, there's a bunch of things that we're working on. Probably too early to talk about too much, but one of the speaking of the feedback that we've been getting from people, one thing that I know that people are very interested in is having embodied carbon present. More than just declaration sheets, as a PDF on the site on the product page, but actually operationalizing the embodied carbon for the products that we have on the site in a way that will make it actionable. You can actually make decisions based on what the carbon footprint of, say 3 or 4 different products that you're choosing between, for your project, and be able to do that intelligently, within the marketplace. Anytime you have someone in the position of a marketplace, you are able to aggregate all these products. You're kind of in a privileged position to see trends that are developing, see what people are interested in, see where demands are, maybe where they're not being fulfilled, see where there's opportunities for manufacturers. And a lot of that is fueling kind of what we see, for future innovation and where we think the market pressures are. But one thing that we're able to do from that privileged position is create better and better ways to compare products. And the embodied carbon piece is something we've been hearing about since even before we launched. You really should be able to say, for a project in the zip code, which of these 4 products that otherwise meet my spec will do the best on total carbon calculation. There are a number of ways to do it. There's a technical piece of how to pull it all together, but we think it's going to be really, really important to just introduce, another layer or remove another layer of opacity to introduce more transparency to this decision making. So you're really deciding based on what the best match is for your specs. If one of those specs is embodied carbon, you should be able to make a decision based on that too.
So Shannon, what would be on your wish list?
Yes, so my wish list is very similar to when I first started with Source, because the potential for the tools to capture what we know about how we account for embodied carbon already is very great. We have a lot of the sheets for calculating it on a scale of measurement that is common. And then we also have a lot of options so folks can compare across brands and see which one's right for them. But in terms of the future, really aligning with that evolution of how embodied carbon is calculated in products and where it will drill down in different areas, and how to align with that grading system so that our compare matrix can also evolve to put that in the forefront during specification. But then also looking at scope 3 emissions, which are really the hardest ones to account for, because during manufacturing or prefabrication or transportation, there's a lot that happens that if you aren't in the market of choosing the manufacturer or understanding what the shipping distance is to the site, not only from the manufacturer to maybe a distributor, but then to the site. Those scope 3 emissions are very hard to calculate before you have to choose your materials and keep your projects going. So really what I would like to see is for our software to evolve to the point where we can put the carbon footprint in the cart. And so we can put our money where our mouth is and say, hey, I have a basis of design for all of these products. But if I put one of my alternates in place of my basis of design selection, what does that do to my carbon footprint before I check out? And so it takes everything that you've bundled, everything you're going to purchase, and gives you that carbon footprint. And you can swap products in and out across brands, across products, and say, I've done the best I can. I've really selected the lowest carbon options that I can for my project.
Awesome. How about you, Michael? What's your vision?
Sorry to just be so much simpler, but I am. I just look at like even just the last conference we were all just at, and we found all of those cool materials and all those cool solutions, and I just can't wait till they're on the site. And I feel like with every event I go to or conference we go to, and we find that brand new solution, and with two of them that I'm thinking about right now, like, and we were telling that company how they work with other companies who are already on and to create a full system. And I don't know. I have to say, as someone who is kind of starved who was starved for solutions for so long, I'm totally into that. Very exciting.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I think this has been interesting for everyone to see or to hear about the people behind Source 2050 and future goals. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely, Ilka. And I have to say, now that Michael mentions it, after being to 3 conferences back to back and walking those expo floors and being so inspired by the products and the people, I am tired. That was a lot of walking. Those expo halls are getting bigger and bigger, and those conferences are getting more and more expensive. So for folks who don't have the resources or the time to do that, I think offering them our virtual expo is really a leg up.
All right. And that was John, Shannon, and Michael from Source 2050. What were your main outtakes, Ilka?
Well, I think for me, it was important, besides highlighting what Source 2050 does on a level where they provide materials that are hard to find for builders and architects and everyone. But I think for me, it was just really important to hear about what they do, what kind of materials and components they have to sell, but also to highlight who the people are behind the scenes. Because if you go on the website of Source 2050, it looks like it is a marketplace. And you basically click on buttons and say, I would like to buy this. But behind the scenes, there's actually so much knowledge that you can actually tap into. So there's passive house consultants, and I mean, Michael is one of the founders, and there's just such a wealth of knowledge that is behind the scenes and also goes into the whole platform and make it work.
Yeah, and to have Shannon's 20 plus years of experience as a project manager is pretty phenomenal, because she's been on the ground. She knows about sequencing, about sourcing product, how challenging that can be to compare different products and figure out, what can be delivered on site, and all of the things that a lot of people don't necessarily think about when they're just drawing a drawing or expecting something to arrive at the right time and know how to install it. A lot of that being taken care of is a huge advantage. I quite like that description of the vision of 2050 being the Amazon of building products. It's sort of that open marketplace where you can go and find everything. And I also like the idea of it being a level playing field regardless of building material or suppliers' budgets. And I see this quite often where some products do quite a good job of making themselves look pretty impressive because they've got really massive marketing budget, whereas there might be some small upstarts who are impressive but maybe don't have a super flash website or don't have really amazing photography. And this really helps specifiers to identify those performance criteria and compare products against those things that really matter to them, which is the performance data, which I think is it's super useful and kind of surprising that doesn't. It's kind of one of those things that's obvious after the fact. It's once it's there, it's like, well, of course you need to be able to do that. So hats off to Michael for sort of having the vision, and then John and Shannon for building it out to what it is. Looks like there are some exciting things planned for the future, Ilka, in terms of incorporating carbon and even more services.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like, Source 2050 has so much potential. There's so much still that can be done. And as John mentioned, even the website, there's big plans on making the website a little bit faster and a little bit more user-friendly and more direct as well. So I think that's the first step. But then, building out the carbon side and filtering mechanisms and onboarding more products, I think that's all really, really exciting. And I think going back to what you just said about the different materials and leveling the marketplace a little bit, I think what's also great is that you do have choices between like different manufacturers, like different membranes, different liquid applied air barriers that do very similar things. And you can compare them, but not only can you compare them, you can talk to the people again behind the scenes and find out, okay, which product is easier or faster available. Like you can make choices that way as well. So things that you typically don't necessarily have or can do when you just go online and find all these different websites and try and gather all the information individually.
I want to do a quick shout out to Knapp sheep's wool insulation, because a lot of that comes from New Zealand.
Yeah, and they're awesome. I got to meet them in person at a conference and just seeing the product and talking to them, and it just an amazing product, and it feels amazing too, just touching it. So it's very nice I've handled it myself, and it's so much nicer than some of the other options out there. But coming back to Source 2050, one of the great things is it allows you to compare all those different criteria, because there are lots of different things to consider whenever you're choosing a material. So really, really cool stuff. You can check them out, source2050.com, and we have links to that in the accelerator, because they are, of course, a supporter of the Passive House Accelerator as well. So I really appreciate their work. Check them out. Thank you, Ilka. Yeah, and I guess I want to add real quickly that a big part of Source 2050 is also Windows, sales of Windows and comparison of Windows as well. There are a bunch of different vendors and manufacturers on the website as well. So I think sometimes people forget about Windows a little bit when they check out the website. But definitely check that out. And again, as we're speaking, I do know that there are more and more vendors, window manufacturers being onboarded as well.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, we'll check them out, and I hope you enjoyed this special component episode of the podcast, and we'll be back again with a regular episode next week.